think you can probably hear me okay now. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. Okay. Um, so this morning I'm going to talk a little bit about history and maybe some other things, but um, it's good to know where things come from. Um, like Zen, for instance, where does Zen come from? um, and so if you trace back the different stories about where does Zen come from, many all roads lead to Bodhidharma, basically, eventually. Bodhidharma was this Indian Buddhist teacher who came to China. And many, there was a lot of interaction between um, uh, Chinese Buddhism and Indian Buddhism. And a lot of that interaction was by way of third parties, uh, usually in Central Asia. Um, but in the case of Zen, at least according to the stories that Zen people tell about ourselves, um, our tradition came really directly from India to China in the person of Bodhidharma. And Bodhidharma brought three things with him when he came to China from India. He brought his robe and his bowl, his begging bowl as a Buddhist monk, and his copy of the Lankavatara Sutra. And uh, Bodhidharma had uh, many students, um, and he actually designated four of his students as uh, Zen masters. Um, One of them was a woman, uh, by the way. Uh, but he gave his robe and his bowl and his copy of the Lankavatara Sutra to just one of those students as kind of the designated, the in 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 Chinese culture, because now he was in China. Um, he followed the tradition of naming one of his heirs as um, the primary heir, the one who gets the family business. Um, and so that was Hui Ko. Um, and for several more generations, the Zen tradition was uh, carried on, and each subsequent generation, there were many new teachers that appeared, but only one of them was designated as the primary holder of the lineage, and that person would receive the robe and the bowl and the copy of the Lankavatara Sutra um, that Bodhidharma had brought. But after a few generations, the robe and the bowl were still there. Um, but uh, the Lankavatara Sutra seems to have dropped out of the story and became replaced by the Diamond Sutra. So by the time of the fifth generation, with Bodhidharma being the first generation, um, the fifth uh, Zen master, chief head Zen master in China, um, Hung Ren is one way of pronouncing his name. Um, a key uh, feature of his teaching was the recitation of the Diamond Sutra. And so he would teach his students to memorize and recite the Diamond Sutra. Um, and one of these students was out one day following his teacher's direction, reciting the Diamond Sutra, and a poor, illiterate uh, peasant uh, from southern China, who may not have even been Han Chinese. There's even speculation that he was Vietnamese or um, some other non-Han Chinese ethnicity. Um, Guy named Lu was his name. He came to be known as Hui Neng, and he came to be known as Hui Neng because Mr. Lu, while still Mr. Lu, heard one of these monks reciting the Diamond Sutra and had a great awakening, and then asked the guy who was chanting the Diamond Sutra what it was all about. And the monk said, "You have to go talk to my teacher if you really want to know what it's all about. I just recite it. That's my job." And so Mr. Lu, and it's actually kind of an important detail of the story about Mr. Lu, is that uh, he worked very hard supporting his mother. Um, uh, it was just the two of them. Her husband, his father, had died many years before, and miraculously, uh, very soon after Mr. Lu had this great awakening experience and found out that he needed to go and talk to this guy Hung Ren to find out what his great awakening was really all about. Somebody gave him a bunch of money and said, "Here, use this to um, support your mother so that you can pursue um, this great thing that you have discovered." And that's one of the things about the Diamond Sutra. So the Diamond Sutra is uh, famous actually in Chinese history as having miraculous powers. Um, and so Mr. Lu, who became known as Hui Neng, went and studied with Hung Ren and received from Hung Ren the robe and the bowl of Bodhidharma, as well as Hung Ren's teaching, direct teaching on the meaning of the Diamond Sutra. Um, so no longer the Lankavatara Sutra. And then, and then a funny thing happened. All of Hung Ren's other students wanted to kill Hui Neng because they were jealous. Because because they had all practiced and studied with Hung Ren for a long time, and they had a favorite uh, among their ranks, whom they all thought was the one that should be the designated um, chief Zen master of China. Um, and so there was a big dispute. There was a big dispute about it, or so the story goes. There isn't much, if any, um, uh, evidence that this actually happened. Although there was a guy named Hung Ren, there was a guy named um, Hui Neng, um, there was a guy named Bodhidharma. I mean, all the people were there, and these something like the events that are told in these stories did happen. But it's very interesting to uh, see the way that the story as it evolved in our self-explanation of Zen, the way that Zen people explain where we come from. When people make things up, it's very revealing. And so, to the extent that the story of where Zen comes from is made up, it's very revealing of what Zen practitioners think. Because when you make something up, it comes from your own mind. When you don't, we say when if you tell the truth, then you're reporting something that is that's independently verifiable. But when you just make something up, then you are revealing what's inside your own head, um, which is far more revealing than when people just tell the truth. Far more revealing about what's going on in their heads. Anyway, so and for some reason, in the history of Zen, it's felt like it was necessary to create some conflict that happened, um, that resulted in Hui Neng becoming the chief Zen master of China over everybody else. And but one thing that happened as a result of this conflict was that it was decided, okay, enough with the robe and the bowl and the, designating one single person as the chief Zen master. And so after that, um, the Zen tradition became much more spread out. There had been many, many teachers along the way, but only during these first 6 generations, going from Bodhidharma to Hui Neng, was there this a great focus on having one single person who was like in charge. And so the Lankavatara Sutra and the Diamond Sutra, if one thing that you can um, uh, learn from this history is that, well, maybe these 2 sutras are of some importance to Zen. And that's probably a good thing. That's probably a good avenue to explore if you're interested in knowing more about Zen. Um, when Zen Master Sung San, like I think Zen Master Sung San, if you count Bodhidharma, and so Bodhidharma was actually not the first Zen master, he was the 28th, because the Buddha, actually the Buddha wasn't the first Zen master, he was the 0th Zen master. His designated, Dharma heir, Mahakasyapa, was considered the first ancestor, the first chief Zen master. Um, and then I think, so in that counting system where Shakyamuni Buddha is number 0 and Bodhidharma is number 28th, and I think Zen Master Sung San was 97, I think 97, which would make Zen Master Degak, our teacher, 98, I think is the numbering. Anyway, but Zen Master Sung San was not born a Buddhist, and it took him, he was a young adult before he was ever first introduced to Buddhism. Maybe 20 years old, maybe 19, barely a young adult, especially when you get to my age. Someone like that, it's just a kid. But this kid had a friend who was a Buddhist monk and who lent him a copy of the Diamond Sutra to read. And Zen Master Sung San, in his description of this, says that upon reading the Diamond Sutra, his mind became very clear. And this led to him reading many other sutras. And that led to him then becoming a Buddhist monk himself, which led to him becoming a Zen master, Zen teacher. Another sutra that plays a major role in the history of Zen, well, and so Zen has never been all that. So the Diamond Sutra wasn't. The Diamond Sutra is just a Buddhist sutra. It's not a Zen sutra in any sense that the Zen school has any particular ownership. And the same is true of the Lankavatara Sutra. Another sutra that is very important in Buddhism, and that has also played a major role in the Zen tradition, is the Avatamsaka Sutra. So if you're familiar with the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh, a great Vietnamese Zen teacher, his teachings are based very much on the Avatamsaka Sutra. And one of the catchphrases that's associated with Thich Nhat Hanh is interbeing. Interbeing. In fact, he calls his monastic group, or he's dead now, but he called his monastic group, and it's still called the Order of Interbeing. So if you become a monk or a nun under in Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh's lineage, you become part of the order of interbeing, and that's a teaching from the Avatamsaka Sutra. This idea of interbeing. So if you want to understand what interbeing is, I wouldn't start with the Avatamsaka Sutra. I would start with reading some books by Thich Nhat Hanh. And he will refer frequently in his teachings. Once you start looking for it, he's constantly referring to the Avatamsaka Sutra. Another sutra that's very influential in Buddhism, that is also important in the Zen tradition, is the Lotus Sutra. A great Japanese Zen teacher, Hakuin, when he first became Hakuin is a really interesting person, a very big personality, and he only lived a few hundred years ago. He wasn't some ancient personage, fairly recent, almost modern person, Hakuin, and I think he became a Buddhist monk, maybe when he was 15 years old, fairly young. And he wanted to become enlightened right away. and so people told him, "Oh, read the Lotus Sutra. That's where that's where the action is." And he read the Lotus Sutra, and he said, he thought it was basically just a fairy tale for children, and so that was when he was still a teenager. When he was in his early 40s, still not enlightened, still frustrated, still wanting to get enlightened, a friend recommended, well, maybe you should read the Lotus Sutra again. And this time, Hakuin credits reading the Lotus Sutra with his great awakening. Another sutra that was very influential in Hakuin's teaching and is very important to Buddhists generally, but also very important in the Zen tradition, is the Vimalakirti Sutra. And so if you read Hakuin's writings, he refers to lots of different sutras, but he especially refers to the Vimalakirti Sutra quite a bit. And the Vimalakirti Sutra is a favorite sutra of Zen people to this day. Sometimes it's the one sutra that people will most often refer to, I think, in the especially Western Zen Buddhists. Which brings me to, let's see, a personal favorite of mine. Let's see, I got a few minutes left. Yeah. The Medicine Buddha Sutra. And so far this talk has been a little bit of a plug for checking out sutras and for becoming more familiar with the relationship between Zen teaching and Zen practice and the study of sutras. But now I'm going to more specifically plug a little practice that I'm going to be leading this coming Saturday, where a group of us will be reading the Medicine Buddha Sutra together online on Saturday from 3 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And actually, we'll read the Medicine Buddha Sutra twice. Let me just read a little bit from the Medicine Buddha Sutra. This is Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha talking to Manjushri. He says, "There are sentient beings who cannot tell right from wrong. They are greedy and mean, do not practice charity, and do not understand the rewards of generosity. They are ignorant and unintelligent, lacking the foundations of faith. Lacking the foundations of faith, they amass riches, which they assiduously hoard. Whenever they come across anyone seeking charity, they become annoyed. If forced to give, they feel as much pain and regret as if they were parting with their own flesh. Moreover, there are also countless sentient beings who are miserly and avaricious. They spend time amassing wealth while not daring to spend it even on themselves, which is, I'm going to just insert a little comment. That's an irony that the Buddha points out, that people who are miserly don't even enjoy their own wealth. So it doesn't work being miserly, which they dare not to even spend on themselves, let alone on their parents, spouse, children, servants, or beggars. When they die, these greedy persons will descend to the realm of hungry ghosts or animals. However, even though they may suffer such a fate, if in a previous existence in the human realm they happen to hear the name of the medicine master, Lapis Lazuli Radiance Tathagata, that is the medicine Buddha, and are now able to recall and recite his name, even briefly, they will immediately vanish from the lower realms to be born once more among humans. However, they will now remember their stay in the lower realms and, dreading their past suffering, will cease to wallow in worldly pleasures. They will gladly practice charity themselves and praise others who do so. So, this is one of the main teachings of the Medicine Buddha Sutra, is the power of just hearing and reciting the name of the Medicine Buddha, which in the Korean tradition is Yaksa Yore Bull. And so I'm going to end just by reciting the name Yaksa Yore Bull a little bit, which is a great thing. So now you can hear this name, and if you end up in a bad place, hopefully not, reborn in a hell realm, but anytime you're in a bad place, if you recall this name and recite it, you too can be helped by the Medicine Buddha. So it goes like this. And so it's Yaksa Yore Bull. Yaksa means medicine master. Yore means Tathagata, which is a way of referring to Buddhas, and bull means Buddha. Yeah, so Yaksa Yore Bull. Yaksa Yore Bull. Yaksa Yore Bull. And when people chant it, it sometimes goes a little bit like this. Yaksa Yore Bull, 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 Yaksa Yore Bull. So, thank you for listening.